Hello, and welcome to the 100th episode of the Total Podcast with me, your host, Phil Scott. So, for my special 100th episode, one of my guests is Lauren Lee, a dog trainer for Mango Dogs. Now, Lauren is an awesome trainer, and she's been to some interesting places. And I wanted to ask Lauren for my 100th episode, what are one of the most interesting places that you've been to on your travels, whether it be school or your career?
Oh, school or career. There's so many wonderful places in the world. This is hard.
And you
Um,
can choose more than one if you want.
okay. Be prepared for a long episode. So, I went to school abroad for 7 years in Singapore, and Singapore is an amazing hub where I was able to travel a lot. Personally, I think one of the most amazing places I've been to is actually Tibet. Tibet
Oh,
and hiking
wow.
the base camp of the Himalayas. That was quite humbling and just a very spiritual, very crazy experience to be part of, where a lot of personal growth happened, mostly physically.
And how
But
long did you stay there?
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah, with a 2 week hiking trip with a bunch of other students from Singapore. We used to do
Hmm.
this really crazy, now I think about it, a field trip, where annually, every year in high school, you would go somewhere abroad for a couple weeks just to learn something new about the culture or give back by building houses for Habitat for Humanity. So, Tibet was one of my most favorite places I've ever visited personally.
Hmm.
But professionally, it actually happened this past year in August. I went to South Africa because on the state side, I volunteer with this lovely organization called Global Conservation Force, started by a good friend of mine who has basically been dedicating his whole life to raising funds stateside to help support anti-poaching units abroad. These anti-poaching units are, it's comprised of a slew of people with different backgrounds, some of which are dog trainers to help train dogs to help seek out things like pangolin skills or rhino horn and help with the poaching crisis out there. So during that trip professionally, I was able to talk to some of those trainers and see like, what are your techniques for training dogs into channeled but like very appropriate aggression, right? We want them to be aggressive in a certain time and place. How do you train that into a dog? I train it out of a dog. So it was very interesting to see how they use the same kind of psychology and different training techniques, but similar to
Hmm.
do almost the opposite of what I do. So understanding that and getting to pick the brains of other people in these, crazy places has helped me grow as a trainer and understand more about how I can address some of these issues with dogs here on the stateside.
Now, uh, getting on the subject of poaching, I mean that's a huge problem,
Yeah.
and it's awesome that you have people out there that's really trying to make a difference and stopping it because I mean we're losing a lot of wildlife,
Yeah.
especially rhinos and then elephants for their ivory.
Yeah.
Um, what was the most surprising thing maybe that you saw on your trip there?
The most surprising thing, you know, there's so many different things that I see during these trips that just blow my mind. But when it comes to the way that humans interact with their environment, with animals, and with the ecosystem, we've created a lot of unfavorable habitats for animals to live in, and we might not even know. And I understand how people aren't don't know because we're not exposed to things across the world, but lots of things like habitat fragmentation. How do these animals now pass genetics to and from if there's a huge road in between these preserves, for example? Because of these issues that we've created, we have to become the solution for them. So, one of the things that I was able to participate in are procedures, or what we call procedures, where animals can be moved to different areas, seeing how people do this on a large scale, where they move an animal from one facility or preserve to another to help with genetic spread was pretty amazing. And I got to see one of those in action. I was used to seeing these kinds of procedures at the San Diego Zoo Safari Park, which was astounding on its own, getting to learn how to work with animals for their best interest, right? Whether it be moving them or checking up on them.
Yes.
Um, Seeing it in a human facility and then seeing it out abroad and how things work out there, that was probably one of the craziest things I had ever seen. So procedures on wildlife or working with actual wildlife in their natural habitat.
Wow, fascinating. Thank you for sharing that
You're
with us.
welcome.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Lauren Lee. What a way to bring in the 100th episode of the Total Podcast. So Lauren, thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's been quite a ride with
Yeah.
much more to go. Much more to go. So I love what I do and I love the guest. And I'm just going to keep going with it. So thank you so much, Lauren.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's nice to meet equally passionate people, so it's my pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much.
You're welcome.
Welcome back to the special 100th episode of the Total Podcast with me, your host, Phil Scott. My next guest on this 100th episode of the podcast is a guest I've had on quite frequently. She is awesome. I call her the Swiss Army knife of Hollywood. She is so talented. She does so many things. Her name is Jessica Ross. So Jessica, thank you so very much for coming on the podcast. I really, really appreciate you coming on this 100th episode of the Total Podcast.
Well, thank you. I'm so happy to be part of this really special episode. And like I've said before, I love the nickname that you gave me. It still sticks till today. Other people have used that in describing me. So that is just, I love it. It's such a coincidence and so fabulous how you never know how something can take off like that. And yes, now that's one of my nicknames is the Jackknife of Entertainment. And like I said, we would have never have thought of that myself, never in a million years.
Well, you do so many different things, Jessica. You're so multifaceted. You're a host, you're an actress, you do more things. So, Jessica, if you would tell us what you've been up to since we spoke last, and then tell us about what you're doing now and what you hope to do in the future.
Yeah, so gosh, where to begin? I mean, so I've been working on a lot of different things since we last spoke. I did a short film called Mr. Smith. I also have my own reality show, Hollywood Unexpected, which is now going to be airing on the XO TV network. So super excited about that. And XO TV network is online, and also you can also find it on a few smart TV channels. So if you have a smart TV, you'll be able to find my show. So it's really exciting. It's not a typical format TV show where it's like half an hour each episode. Each of these episodes is only a few minutes long, but it's really exciting because it's fast paced. It's something where viewers will be feeling like that they're with me, that they're on an adventure with me. So it's really exciting. And I'm going to be showing footage from both Hollywood and Virginia. I think I spoke about before. I filmed a big portion of Hollywood Unexpected in Virginia when my friends surprised me with a trip out there. So people will get to see some unseen footage from my trip to Virginia. So I'm really happy to share that with everyone. And also they'll be able to see some footage from Hollywood. I'm also working on another TV show. It's a woman empowerment type TV show. And it's a cast of all females that we all know each other from different events. And we are all actually jackknives of entertainment. So it's really great because each of us is an actress, but also does other stuff like hosting or directing. So I'm really excited. I'm working on that with two girls, Kathy Kalla and Brenda Miha, and we've been friends and also colleagues on the red carpet. And we decided to create this TV show, which we've been filming and working on the past several months. So that's definitely something I'm looking forward to in the future. Now, so I've auditioned for some really incredible projects, so I never know when I'm going to get that call back for something and I could talk about it.
Wow, that's amazing. Now,
thank you. And then I recently modeled in a Karen Michelle fashion show this Sunday. So that was a really great. We're supporting Artists for Trauma. So the fashion show and the event raises money for Artists for Trauma. And that's an organization that supports first responders with art and different types of crafts and different ways to help support them because they have a really stressful job. And a lot of them have a PTSD and other things like that. So it was great to be part of the fashion show and support that on Sunday. So that's yes, it's been busy.
What was that experience like for you doing the fashions show?
I love doing fashion shows. I think it's exciting because it's almost like very similar to live TV in a way where if you make a mistake, there's no room to fix it. So it gives you this excitement where you're on edge and you have one chance and that's it. So you have one chance to walk the runway and anything happens, then you just have to literally walk with it, walk with it, run with it. So it's exciting. I mean, it's so much fun. You get to work with a group of people, and it's a lot of commotion, makeup artists, hair people. So it's like at the end of the day, the day goes by so fast. Like you get there 11 a.m. before you know it, it's 5 o'clock. And you're like, what? It feels like you've only been here half an hour.
For you, what's more challenging? What's the most challenging thing to do? Hosting, doing a television host gig, or acting? Which one is the most challenging for you?
I mean, I would have to say, of course, they're all so different, but I would say if it's a hosting gig and it's live, or whether it's on a red carpet or live in the studio, I mean, that's always going to be more difficult versus an acting gig where if there is a mistake, you can reshoot it. So that's really where it makes it more difficult, because like I said, if you do make a mistake, it's live on camera and you never know what can happen. I mean, the whole world can see it. So it's like if you do or say something that is very wrong, then it's like you can get unlucky, and some people, their career is ruined. So it's like and that's what makes it exciting at the same time. It's like this rush that you get because anything can happen. So definitely, like when you're doing live TV, you're hosting, you're completely on your toes. And at the same time, you're talking to different people, and you can do your research, but there's always going to be stuff that you don't know about people and things that you forget to ask.
Do you have one or two red carpet moments that kind of stand out for you?
I'm trying to think, there's been so many throughout the years. I mean, I think like a lot of the best red carpet moments is when you meet someone that you watched on TV and that you've looked up to since you were a little kid. That's always exciting. Like I remember meeting Paula Abdul and taking multiple pictures of her.
Wow.
That was incredible because I mean, hello, she's an icon. And she was so nice and sweet in person. And actually, we're also the same height, which is really cool. I told her, I was like, you need to let me borrow some of your clothes.
Wow.
And then another time, another celebrity I really love, Michelle Rodriguez. We were walking the red carpet at a similar time. She was walking the red carpet before I was, and after she was leaving the red carpet, she complimented my outfit. So that made me so happy. It was music to my ears. I was like, I'm definitely going to wear this outfit more often.
That's pretty awesome. Wow.
Yeah. So little moments like that, like some people that you've seen since you were a little kid, you looked up to. And now you're actually talking to them in person and taking pictures of them or interviewing them and talking to them. That's what makes it so exciting.
That's incredible. That's wonderful. Well, I wanted to ask you too, in terms of life after the pandemic, because everything shut down, especially Hollywood in general, and then it slowly started to get back on its feet. What has been the attitude among the people that you've been working with since everything has been kind of back into the swing of things?
I mean, I think everyone's really just ready to work, and everyone is so eager to get involved in different projects. And that's how my newest project came into place. We're calling it Chasing Stars, is because really it's like how everyone's life has changed after the pandemic, and how everyone wants to rebuild and get everything back together. And they really do call me normal because it's back to normal, but still not the normal that we had before. So right. It's like there's always this risk of COVID, and you still see people wearing masks sometimes, which is like, wow.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, I've seen people at my work. I work with kids, and there are kids that still wear masks, and I see some of the adults wearing masks too, and it still kind of takes me aback. And like, but I can see why some people do it. I mean, it's their choice to do it. I mean, I don't, but I can see why some people do it. So as long as they're comfortable and they're okay with it, then who am I to judge?
Exactly. I think I said everyone's attitude is just everyone just wants to get back to doing what they love, and going to events, working on different projects, because it's kind of like it's been such a long break, so everyone has all this energy, and so that's why we've been so busy trying to do as much as possible, like doing this podcast and working on so many different projects and just doing everything you can to connect with viewers and network and put yourself out there.
Right, right. Absolutely. I agree. Well, Jessica, oh, tell us again what network on online we can find your show.
Yeah, so you can find Hollywood Unexpected on the XO TV network.
And that will be April 21st. It premieres,
Yes,
correct?
it starts airing April 21st, and you can go to xotv.me and you can watch it there. Not like so, also be on various smart TVs as well. And you can also follow me on Instagram. I'll be posting different updates and different things. I always update my page, and that's, as you know, Jessica Ross Official.
Yes. Awesome. And I love your Instagram page too.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, Jessica, thank you so very much for doing this 100th episode of the Total Podcast with Phil Scott. You have been so gracious. Every time I've asked you to come on, you've come on. To me, that means a lot. And that's something that I hold dear. And I thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule to do the podcast. You didn't have to do that, but yeah, every time I've asked, you've done it. And if you ever have to say no, I'm okay with it because I know you're such a busy person. So thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it, Jessica.
No, thank you for including me. I'm so excited to be on this 100th episode, and congratulations to many more. Hopefully I'll get to be on your 200th episode in a year from now, right?
Yeah. Fingers crossed.
I will have more good news about my show being a hit.
Yes. I'd love to have you on again to talk about your show and to talk about some other things too, because they're so fascinating and I just love having you on. So thank you, Jessica.
Thank you. It was so happy to be here, and I look forward to checking out the podcast. And yeah, I'm so excited.
All right. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So
Bye.
thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care.
You got it. So thanks, everybody. And that is the end of this segment of the Total Podcast. There will be more to come on this 100th episode of the Total Podcast with Phil Scott right after this. Welcome back to this 100th episode of the Total Podcast with me, your host, Phil Scott. So now for my next guest on this special 100th episode. She's a children's book author. She's been on my show in the past. She's an amazing writer, and she has quite an interesting story. But we're going to talk about what she's doing now and her book from the past. Her name is Jannesy De Leon. And Jannesy, thank you so very much for being on this 100th episode of the podcast. I truly appreciate it. It is an honor. Thank you.
Thank you. It's my honor, Phil, to be on your 100th episode. I'm so honored that you asked me, and I'm so happy to do this.
Thank you. Well, Jannesy, tell me what's been going on in your life with your first book, Tag You're It. I mean, that was just an amazing book. It was one of my top episodes of 2022. So tell me about the experience with the book. I know you've toured, you've done some readings on with your book and such, and I know the audiences must have just loved your book. So tell me a little bit about that and how that's gone for you.
It's gonna be a year since it launched, and I had some wonderful school readings, visits in New York City. I mean, we're like an hour and a half from New York City, and I was able to do them virtually last year. And the kids were so upbeat and so it encouraged me to know that these kids really are taking in that story, that message that Taggart brings to these young readers about inclusion. I mean, they really, 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 it really resonated with them because again, with Taggart, just to say real quickly, it's about a little girl who's nonverbal in a wheelchair who wants to prove to the kids that she can play tag with the help of her brother. But it's just not only about a child with disabilities. I mean, these other children, it resonated with them because it kind of just covered any difference where they felt there was at a time where they felt excluded for some reason. So it really was an exciting time because the minute my local newspaper found out I was getting a book, that I had written a book and they loved my story and they featured me on the front page. And then from there, all the news medias on my local news media, the regionals, came calling. And so we had like 5, I think, media appearances. I had a radio also appearance, but you were my first, Phil. You were my first.
Wow, that's such an
And I think
honor
of you
too.
fondly because you were my first, and I was so excited. And so there was a lot of attention to the book because of my story and my inspiration for the series. And now the second book, as I was busy marketing, did tons of Barnes and Nobles appearances, and I've been selling lots of books. It's been wonderful. Just recently also did a Farida Across America an event. I've just slowed down a little bit because I've been short staffed on nursing for my daughter. And so I don't have that kind of flexibility of movement. But I'll do a lot of things virtually. I actually have something coming up now, a virtual book tour that I haven't put on social media yet. We're working on that as we speak. And so I'm trying to do things here or there. But in the meantime, I was busy writing and working on my second book. And with BiblioKid, my publisher, it comes out in October this fall. And I'm so excited. It's called Not a Shot, a story of overcoming fear with Gabby and Nikki. It's the second book of the series. And it's really the main character. It's really about Nikki kind of scared of a shot there, but always still through Gabby's eyes, through point of view, I mean. And so it's really not about Gabby's disability. It's really about Nicholas. It's about her brother. And I just love it because it's just a story about them. And it's actually a comical story. So I think people will love it. And those fans of Gabby and Nikki, they're going to love it because people have been asking me, is there another book? Is there another book? And I said, yes, there's plenty of books. I'm actually, writing now the third book of the series, hopefully. So at some point when I figure out how, to get the money to self-publish that third book, then I will do so. But in the meantime, I'm super excited about the second book. I love the illustrations, everything. As a matter of fact, I think the cover's behind me there. Super excited about it. And I couldn't be happier with the way it came out.
Now, tell me, when you were coming up with the idea for the second book, did you already have it in mind when you wrote the first one, or was it something that just kind of developed over time after the first book was written?
I actually, if people remember my last interview, I had this whole series things in my mind for like 15, 16 years. And I just was too immersed in caring for the kids and it just never really happened. And then when I finally decided to focus on it, even at the time, I didn't realize that I wasn't starting from a place of nothing. I actually had been doing, my sister had given me textbooks to learn how to write fiction and all these things. And I had totally forgotten that I had written titles for books or ideas for the stories. And I had done internal and external characteristics of the characters. And I had totally forgotten that. So I actually had the idea for the first book and then the second book. And it's just evolving as we speak, but I have something to draw from.
Wow.
Yeah. And so
I
the
think
third book, hopefully, I'm introducing, I think, I don't want to give too much. I won't say anything now because you never know what can happen anyway. I
Right.
can change my, but it's really, it'll just be stories, that happen to have a disabled a character who has disabilities.
And I think that's a smart reason why they always give advice. People give advice, especially other writers, write things down, keep a journal, write your ideas down because that's so important.
It really is because a lot of times, even I wish I could journal every day, but when I do journal, I will forget. And once I sit down and I write again and I'll read the last passage, I'm like, wow, that was deep. That was good. You know, because I'll completely forget. So it is important to write everything down because you don't. And I had done all this research. I had learned about arcs of stories and all these things. I mean, but even with all that, it was still hard and different because children's books is just harder. It's less word and you have to convey the message within these little amount of words, like 500 words on average, and it's actually really difficult. And I'm just grateful to that I had taken the writing course with Journey to Kidlit, and I've been able to use that template that I learned with them, uh and that's how I continue to keep writing.
Now you have the same illustrator for the second book as the first book, correct?
Yes,
I
I
mean,
just want to keep it the same. Yeah,
yeah,
I want
those
them to look
illustrations
fine.
were
I'm in love with
excellent.
the way they look, and there was no reason. His name is Gasper. He's in Argentina. He's wonderful.
Yeah, those illustrations were excellent.
Yes,
And
I just like bright colors. I mean, as a mom who loves children's book, I was always drawn to books with bright colors, and so I kind of that's what I wanted to do. And so this third book as well, the colors are I feel like almost even more vivid, and so I'm excited about that.
what do you think has been one of the greatest gifts or lessons you've learned throughout the process of getting the book published and then meeting all the people and the kids that you've met so far? What's been the greatest message or gift that you've gotten from what you've done?
You know what? That I can do anything. Believe it or not, it was for me. Big lesson for me that I can do anything that I put my mind to. And so that's my message to anyone struggling with anything, that if you just envision it and then you just focus on what you love to do and what you enjoy to do, while still doing your life, you're gonna have ups and downs, but if you can focus on a daily basis on something that you love doing, um, the rest is gonna come. And I just feel more confident now. Uh, but and like you said, just be myself.
Right.
Um, Being myself is the only thing that I know, but it is resonating with people. But that was really the big message that I've learned so far, that I can do anything that I put my mind to. And so I hope to convey that message to everyone else that comes in my path.
Well, I hope to have you back on the show in the future again to talk more about your book and the upcoming
Yes,
book that's coming up after
we're gonna
that
put it
one.
out there already. Yeah.
So yeah, so it's just always an honor to talk to you. I mean, you're intelligent, you're smart, you're strong, and that's one of your
Thank you.
really, really wonderful virtues. You're a strong woman. You're an inspiration not only to other women, but you have kids out there and even little kids that may have not been aware of what your kids are going through. You're making them aware of disabilities and challenges that other kids go through, and that they can deal with those disabilities and deal with those children in a wonderful way. They don't have to be afraid or scared.
Correct. Because that was like my number one thing with Tag Your It, is just exposing young children and letting them know, feel empathy, because they themselves have had a moment of feeling different or excluded. And so in understanding that, they can then connect and not be afraid to, let's say, try to include another child in school, and or either come up to someone who's different. And so they were very, it was heartwarming, especially in my last event, because they were just so excited and they always have all these ideas and they love being includers. And so that's really heartwarming. And if that's the only thing I accomplish in life, then I feel very blessed.
One quick question I just thought of. What has been the age range of the kids that you've spoken to? Has it been
From
K through
kindergarten to
6?
2, I think it's from 3 to 7, this particular book.
Now, in terms of feedback from the kids, what do you think has been the most maybe surprising feedback that you've gotten from a child?
They really root for Gabby. I
Wow.
had someone mention how touching they were when their child got so happy that Gabby got to tag someone and that she was so happy. And so that's what I mean. It's that connection to this little spunky little character, that even despite some perceived limitations, that she wants to play too, and she has feelings too. And the fact that they were just rooting for her. And I just thought that was, oh my God, it just touched my heart in a really deep way.
Wow. Well, that's a perfect place to end. So, Jannesy, thank you so very much for doing this 100th episode of the Total Podcast. And I hope to have you on again more in the future. And best of luck to you in your writing and in your life, because you are such an inspiration. Keep it up. Keep
Thank
it
you
up
so much.
and
Thank
keep
you so much for
inspiring.
having me.
Oh,
I'll
you're
happily see
welcome.
you again for the third book.
Yes, definitely, indeed. Thank you very, very, very much. I appreciate it. So thank
You're
you.
very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. So stay tuned for more of this 100th episode of the Total Podcast with me, your host, Phil Scott.